Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your moderator, Tom Daly, and I want to welcome you to the Town of Shaftsbury annual meeting. I'm going to call the meeting to order. We start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Could you all please stand up, face the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. As I do every year, the next thing I do is it's just kind of a reflective moment of silence. And you know, when I was thinking about what I'd want to ask you to remember, I was thinking about Washington and what's going on with our politicians and how they all need whatever support and help we can give them, frustrating as it is at times. And then I was reminded, we still have a war that's going on. We still have soldiers that are outside of our country, overseas. My son was over there, just returned in February. But I found that it's real easy to forget. And so I guess I'd ask that's what we have our moment of silence about tonight. Our troops that are not home. Thank you. Okay, on with the meeting. I'd like to introduce our select board. Lon McClintock, starting at my left here, Lon McClintock, who is the chairman of the board. Next to him, vice chair, Karen Mellinger, Craig Bruder, Billy Obenauer, and Carl Corman. On the end is our town administrator, Margie Becker. And I think it's our recording clerk, Richard Bump, right? Okay, and I can't forget Judy Stratton in the back. She's our wonderful town clerk. A little bit of housekeeping. Fire exit here, fire exit here. If you really got to get out, you can go right through there too. When we get into the meeting where we're going to be voting, discussing, things like that, you need to raise your hand. I'll recognize you so that you can speak. We need to approach the microphone. It's always difficult, but it's real important. Even if you have a very loud voice, the people here might be able to hear you, but we need the microphone because this is live. It's being broadcast into a lot of homes, not only in Shaftsbury, but elsewhere by CAT TV. So it's real important that when you're recognized, you come on up to the microphone, and we'll give you time. We'll wait. When you start out, give your name for the record, so it'll show up in our minutes next year. Direct all questions or comments to me, the moderator. Non-residents, if there are some sitting here, non-residents, you know, when you're here with your friends or whatever, you can't vote. I always say, you know who you are. The people next to you know who you are. If you do vote, generally it's going to be a sharp elbow in the ribs, although I don't think anybody's ever had to do that. And that'll be enough of the housekeeping for right now. So Lon, I want to turn it over to you for special recognitions.
Okay. Actually, the first thing I wanted to say was I was originally appointed to the board to fill the slot that was open. And I thought it'd be interesting to be on the select board, but I had no idea what I was getting myself in for.
I use the mic.
And what I found was that I met a lot of friends and neighbors that I never knew I'd come to enjoy, both working with and as part of the town. This has been an exceptional experience for me, and I got to tell you, it's all due to the people I've been working with, both members of the Select Board, the Planning Commission, Judy, the Board of Civil Authority, with Marna Daly and the rest, Ken Coonrad. I really first have to thank you for giving me the opportunity to represent you on the Select Board and to work with you as we move forward. And this is the only opportunity I'm really going to have to sort of express how great an experience this really has been for me. So thank you very much. Okay. Now what we have to do is move over here. And that's what we're going to get through tonight. Now, in the town book are a lot of members of the Act 250 steering committee, but a lot of people put in time and energy to make the various celebrations of the town's anniversary during the course of the year a big success. And so we particularly like to thank those people who dedicated time to it. Joan Vargo, Jane Bruno, Mike Jordan, Ken Coonrad, Bonnie Kriego, Jim Meskin, Kathy Link, Tyler Resch, Helen Olney, Dina Ruge, Mark and Faith Bolhart, Michael Ryan, Michael Biddy, Michael and Lilibeth Foley, Walt Klinger, Norm and Mary Groning, Mitch and Joanne Race, and Jerry and Ron Chu. Thank you all for making this up. Now, every now and then we get 2 Eagle Scouts who offer to do a project for the town. And I'm very proud to say that we had 2 great contributors have their Eagle Scout project with the town of Bennington, or excuse me, the town of Shaftsbury. James Mazzola, who installed a fence on the north side of the village cemetery, and Ben Hewlett, often known as young Ben Hewlett, who worked on the Shaftsbury Cemetery projects, and he also raised money to purchase veterans medallions. These are medallions that are going to be put on the headstones in cooperation with the Veterans Committee of all the veterans who are in the Shaftsbury cemeteries. We're very grateful for their efforts for the town.
I just want to correct the James Mazzola did the north fence at the center cemetery. That's the wooden fence on the north side of the center, not the building.
All right, I stand corrected.
Thank you.
Tony Myers has been with the Highway Department twice. For 9 years of service, he's retiring this year. He brought a lot of experience to the job, and he worked very hard in his very quiet way, and his 9 years of service is greatly appreciated. Karen, I'm going to let you do this one because you really know how to explain it.
Well, hopefully when you all came in this evening, you saw that there was a poster board right outside the door. Above that, on the wall, is a beautiful mural that the last year's 6th grade class painted in commemoration of Shaftsbury's 250th. And we couldn't recognize them last year because they hadn't done it yet. It was their gift to the school. And all of these, this was the outgoing class, 6th grade class last year. And we were really proud. Kathy Link brought it to our attention. Those kids worked all year on different events surrounding Shaftsbury's 250th. And as Kathy said, that mural looks like Main Street of Shaftsbury 250 years ago. So hopefully you'll all, as you go back out, take a backwards look up at the wall, because it really is a beautiful piece of work. Rather than going back and forth to read the names to you, I think you can see them all there, but I think it would be great if we gave them all a round of applause.
Okay, thank you, Tom.
Okay. I'm not going to say you all came for this, but many of you probably did come for it. That would be Representative Alice Miller's report. She told me that she's got laryngitis or something like that. And I got a little excited about it, but she was just whispering, and then she did raise her voice when it looked like I was going to threaten her with a time limit of some sort.
I offered him the opportunity to read my talk. He said, absolutely not. Greetings to you all. It's good to be home, and it's so good to see you all. The Doyle poll is on the town clerk's table in the back. Please fill it out. Put it in a big box I left there for you. And Joyce Gary will tabulate it again, won't you, Joyce? I hope. Remember when you do your income tax this year to check off the box that asks if you're a resident or a non-resident. That was, the tax department eliminated that for a while, but now it's back on the tax form. Be sure to do that, because there's no appeal, there's no nothing. If you forget to say that and you get taxed as a non-resident, it's not a nice experience. We've had our share of troubles with Irene and the recession, but thought you might like to hear of some of Vermont's successes. We're nearing the completion, thanks to the governor, of broadband build out to all corners of the state. Vermont now ranks 4th in the country for the speed of broadband connections. In the last 2 years, Vermont has expanded broadband to 95% of locations in Vermont, spending $400 million in the last 3 years. We're on the verge of building a new state hospital. We're actively rehabilitating roads and failing bridges, and we're working to boost renewable energy industry. Vermont student performance ranks among the highest in the country. We have the highest graduation rate in the nation. Our graduation rate is 91.4%, well above the national median of 78.6%. And we are #1, the healthiest state in the nation, according to a national survey conducted by the United Health Foundation. In 2011, Vermont was tied for 3rd in the country for the fewest number of uninsured people. Our unemployment rate is 5%, nearly 3% lower than the national average of 7.8%, and it's the lowest rate in New England. Data from a release from the U.S. Census Bureau show that Vermont suffered less impact from the national economic downturn than the country at large. Vermont was the only state in the country where the median income increased in 2011. Vermont was found to be in the top 10 of entrepreneurial states in the Kaufman Index of Entrepreneurial Activity. Working to create a balanced budget presents multiple challenges. This year's budget proposal presents dilemmas, many even tougher than we faced at the height of the recession. We have more federal cuts within the next few years. You've been following Congress, you know what's going on. Our National Guard is going to be hit very hard if an agreement is not made. Rising energy costs are impacting local program needs, such as LIHEAP. That's the low-income fuel program. Rising energy costs are impacting local program needs. The continued international economic instability affecting exports and tourism is a problem. The potential impact of federal sequestration. Back to our good parts. Vermont is one of the safest states in the country, with just 129.1 violent crimes and 1.1 murders per 100,000 people. Nonetheless, we have challenges. Ensuring public safety in our communities is a high priority for the legislature. Home and vehicle break-ins are occurring at a high rate, in large part fueled by opiate addiction. The revenue challenge. In 2012, Vermonters spent $40 million less on gas than in 2005. This is encouraging news, as it demonstrates the increasing use of more efficient vehicles and reduces our carbon footprint. It does present, however, a revenue decrease of $8 million, which we need to account for in the current transportation budget. And the costs of projects continue to increase. We need to find an additional $36.53 million in state funds, which are required to fully fund the proposed fiscal year 2014 transportation budget. Without action, we risk our ability to match more than the $50 million of federal transportation dollars. We don't find the money, we don't get those dollars. Healthcare is a major part of our agenda, as you know. This year, we're creating the funding system for the exchange and working to bring Vermont benefits in line with federal programs. Vermont's health exchange program is Vermont Health Connect. You'll be hearing a good deal more about this. And finally, a bit of a down note. I am responsible for the Veterans Home budget on the House Appropriations Committee, along with a number of other things. But the Veterans Home in Bennington is having serious fiscal challenges, compounded by problems between the management and the workforce. Many of us are working hard to keep it open for our veterans, the legislature, the trustees, the union, and the employees. Great to see you all. You know how to reach me.
Thank you, Alice. Thanks for your tireless efforts in Montpelier on our behalf. Okay, now into the meat of the program. Lon, you want to do the budget summary?
Okay.
And let's see if we can move the microphone around so that we'll leave you for the...
I can talk loud.
We get it right.
Is there anybody who can't hear me?
I'm concerned about the people that are out in the community.
Okay.
There you go.
All right. Budgets for next year start where we left off the last year, not the year we're in right now. And the good news is that, let's see if I've got this right. I think we're one too far ahead. Okay, so we ended fiscal year 2012. That ends on June 30th, 2012, with our revenues in excess of our spending by $67,530. So that's about 4% of the budget. So we ended the year ahead of the game rather than behind. And with Bill Fisk's help, we identified that we have a $320,000 fund balance, the majority of which is cash that's been sitting in our account. We're going to talk about that a little bit later, but we realized that over the years we'd accumulated cash that was substantial, that all of which was not needed to just be sitting there. So the treasurer made a recommendation that we use some of that fund balance to reduce taxes. And he recommended that having a $200,000 reserve was enough for the town's financial needs, dealing with unexpected expenses, help with cash flow and a few other things. So part of what we're going to be doing in the proposed budget is taking $120,000 from this cash reserve and using that to decrease your property taxes. Mert Snow has been extremely successful in 2012 collecting delinquent taxes. $257,000 was collected, which was more than we've seen in recent years. I don't know if it says anything about the economy or about Mert or both, but it's a welcome sign to see people getting current on their taxes. And highway and government aid increased by about $74,000. So we're seeing that the state is not backtracking so far on its commitments to the town. So those were all good signs. In terms of how we used your money, most of the departments met their goals. They either spent at or just below the amounts budgeted for their departments. One of the ways that it was done, that we've been working on for several years, is the highway department is using flexible scheduling. Overtime is the most expensive way to plow your roads, and you're paying time and a half for the crew to be out. What we've been trying to do is to have the crew not report to work in anticipation of a storm, and so when they go out, they're going out at regular rates, and they're working the 40-hour week. And that's been successful in controlling our overtime expenditures. The listers are now, I believe, in the second year of using a man approved by the state and licenses an appraiser to do what's called grand list maintenance. And in 2012, that saved us about $7,000. The listers needing to put in fewer hours and then us having a professional service oversee the maintenance of the grand list. That was a recommendation by the listers that's helped both their operations and helped the bottom line for the town. The one blip was the roof repairs that came about as a result of the Irene storm. It was an unbudgeted expense, and the insurance didn't quite cover all of the costs. But other than that, 2012 was a financial success. In terms of what we've accomplished so far in 2013, the highway department's been fairly aggressive. There was a sinkhole developing on the White Creek Road. We've known about it for several years, and we thought the cost was going to be inordinately expensive to get it cured. With Terry, the road foreman, in conjunction with the Vermont Department of Transportation, worked out a fix that was within our budget, and so far it's working out pretty well. That was quite a success because that was going to be a sinkhole of dollars if we couldn't get a fix this time. He's also taken on the problem of widening and improving Cider Mill Road. That's a bus route, and more than one homeowner has told us that there have been more than one close call up towards the top of Cider Mill Road because of how narrow it is and how it gets steep. We went ahead and replaced Truck 4 as part of the budget. But the important thing is that instead of buying another truck, the same as what we had, the highway department bought a dual axle truck. Terry Stacy explained to me that the capacity is, what, Terry, twice? A little bit more than twice. And so when that truck goes out to the hollows, it can do more road in fewer trips, which means we're consuming a lot less gas in terms of running back and forth between the sand pile and Shaftsbury Hollow Road and having lost man hours just in transporting back and forth. So buying this larger vehicle has actually helped us stay on the road and spread more material with less downtime. Peckham Industries did us a great favor. They wanted to demonstrate reclaiming. And since they live close by, they offered to do Twitchell Hill. And if you know anything about Twitchell Hill, it's sort of like a toboggan ride. They tore off all of the material and repaved it at a small expense, relatively small expense to the town, donating a substantial amount of material and equipment and time. So we were able to do that even though it wasn't on our schedule because we didn't think we could afford it. And for the cost of shipping, the Highway Department acquired a loader that has a bucket that will has a capacity of 4 yards, which means that it can fill one of our regular trucks with a dump and a half instead of 7 or 9 dumps and 7 backhoe loads, and it can fill the bigger truck with 2 or 3, so that the road crew can get out on the road much faster because the trucks are loaded. So there's been a lot of improvement in the Highway Department. The Fire Department, because of Homeland Security, the feds and the state want both highway departments, law enforcement, and the rest of the government infrastructure using radios that can communicate with each other. So that when you have a storm like Irene or some other disaster, the highway crew, the fire departments, police, rescue can all work in a coordinated fashion. Before this effort was made, everybody was on their own frequencies and couldn't necessarily talk with one another. We're working out some glitches with the type of band width that the FCC has given the fire department, but it's going to be a big improvement for the department once we get those glitches worked out. You approved selling truck 66. The chief was successful in negotiating a higher price to sell that truck than we originally estimated. And he acquired the new truck, which will have multi-purpose at interest rates better than we calculated. So the whole package came in financially much better than we originally estimated. The fire company continues to volunteer its time. They did a lot of painting and repair over at the Depot Road Fire Station. And you approved purchasing a new brush truck for Oliver Durand and the fire warden. Well, the fire department has a rescue truck that it no longer needs now that it has this new multi-purpose truck. And they recommended using this very serviceable rescue truck and retrofitting it to serve as the brush truck. We've just gotten the bids in last week. They look much more favorable than we estimated by some reputable firms. So that project is going ahead as planned financially for a better price than we expected. Just some other things. We adopted a highway access ordinance, so now we've got this problem of how we're dealing with people who want to have new driveway entrances onto town roads. We completed the preliminary design work with MSK Engineering for the new town garage facility that we'll discuss in a little bit. The school had a pretty nice coup in acquiring an emergency generator for the school. The school is a designated emergency shelter. It's got this nice big space, it's got a kitchen, it's got the facilities to serve as an emergency shelter if we need it. During Irene, the fire station, which is also one, was not available because the roof started leaking and we had to shut the building down in terms of being an emergency shelter. The new generator that the school acquired for about $1 is going to create the capacity for this place to operate even if power goes down throughout the community. The select board is in the process of talking with the school board. It's still very preliminary about how the town shares the cost of completing the installation and the ongoing maintenance of this generator so that this emergency facility will always be at the ready for the town should the need arise. This project will probably get completed sometime this year, I would suspect. And the other thing is the Environmental Issues Committee thought that the sale of access stickers and pay-as-you-throw stickers were not what they should be. So they started do you mind if we see your current sticker? And some people had current stickers. Some people had stickers from this decade. Some people had stickers from another decade. And just by getting everybody on board, the access sticker sales are now where they should be, and the transfer station is running financially where it should be running. So now about 2014. A budget is not a precise document. It's an estimate of what we think we're going to bring in as revenues and an estimate of what we think we're going to spend based on our priorities. It's a policy document that basically honors commitments we've already made. We bought trucks on loans. Got to keep paying those loans. We have salaries and benefits that we've committed to. Some run on a calendar year, some run on a fiscal year. So not all of the budget is within our control in the sense that some commitments have already been made. And we base our projection in part based on prior years, but also based on changes. For example, we're realizing that we're using less fuel since the energy grants we got installed new furnaces and improved furnaces at Coal Hall and the fire station. So our overarching goals for the 2014 budget is, if the voters approve, we would like to build the new town garage facility out at the transfer station. That's a garage, a pole barn, and a sand salt shed. We're moving ahead with completion of the planning for the finishing the sidewalk project at the Route 7A Church Street intersection. The project probably will not be done in the next fiscal year. Karen, do I have that right?
Our hope is next summer.
Okay, so that would be fiscal year 2015.
Right.
So we'd spend all of this proposed fiscal year completing the planning to have that underway in 2015. What was that? The computer network is set up, and now there are different types of software that are going to help the various departments share information and work better together. That's a project that's still underway. And we're trying to get Margie, who I have the utmost respect for, some additional administrative support. Because she's not only being asked to post notices in post offices, but to basically make decisions about financing trucks and equipment plans and closing out grants and grant management. And so if we could take some of these more these smaller tasks off her shoulders so she could focus her talents on the bigger questions, the bigger issues, I think we'll be financially better off. We're in the process right now. We've hired a website company. It's actually an individual to redesign the town website. There's a lot of information people can get without having to come to Coal Hall. Zoning bylaws for builders or developers or property owners, minutes of meetings, our budgets, notices, agendas, all of that. Bill Pennybaker has done a wonderful job for us, but the select board senses we're putting so many demands on this as a source of information that it's very difficult for a volunteer to do this by themselves. talking about reaching one of our goals to finish this agreement on the use of the generator. Another big change is that we've been trying to improve crew wages because we're paying less than towns our size with comparable miles. And quite frankly, we've seen in a couple of cases where we hire a new guy, we train them, and then they just hop over to Bennington or another community that pays more. And who complains? So what we're proposing to do with the 2014 budget is, since we're being effective controlling the amount of overtime we use, instead of just cutting it out of the budget altogether, we use that money to improve their regular wages so that they're having a better wage year-round, and we're not paying a premium every time that we need, say, plowing at night. That's a way of being fair to the crew. This change will have no effect on how much we actually spend, because for every dollar that's used for wage improvement, a dollar has been taken away from overtime. We have to replace a 1-ton truck. The road foreman's recommending that we get a flatbed because it will provide us greater flexibility in the summer construction season. It will be able to do the plowing the 1-ton trucks do in the winter time because we can put a sander on it and a plow. But having a truck with a little different configuration gives the crew the ability to do that many more things with it. I wanted to talk about community appropriations this year for just a couple of items. North Shaft Little League no longer exists and has been merged into the Bennington Little League. So some voters may say, why are we giving a community appropriation to the Bennington Little League? Well, our kids are not playing in that league. So just to make sure there's no misunderstanding, by approving an appropriation for the Bennington Little League, it's actually going to the kids, our kids who are participating in that program. The other one is the George D. Aiken RC&D, or the George D. Aiken Fund. That went out of existence a couple of years ago. They asked for $200. That organization needs the $200 to show that they have broad community support. They don't really need the money. But what they give us are grants for municipal projects like dry hydrants to improve fire safety. I think the last dry hydrant grant we got was either $4,000 or $6,000. So give them $200 and get $4,000 in exchange. Maybe not a bad deal. If you can get a better one, let me know.
Point of information?
Yes.
In the book here, it says 100 for that organization. Is this a misprint?
No. I'm an attorney. I tend to exaggerate.
So it's an even better deal.
I'm sorry. I didn't have the number memorized. So it's known as Northern Vermont RC&D. And that's the same organization as providing the same municipal grants. And there is one first-time applicant. It's the Turning Point Center of Bennington. They provide support for people with substance abuse problems, particularly young people and teenagers who've gotten involved with alcohol or drugs. And they did file an application, and we do have Shaftsbury residents and teenagers who are served by the Turning Point Center of Bennington. But I just thought it'd be helpful if you just knew a little about who they are. Okay. So here's where we get to the scary stuff. In 2012, the amount raised by taxes was $1,300,000. For the current fiscal year, we proposed a budget about $24,000 less, $1.3 million. And this year, for 2014, we're proposing a budget that's about $350 less than last year. Just in terms of the amount to be raised by taxes. The overall revenues are going up a little bit more substantially, but that's because in 2012 we had a nice surplus. 2013 we're on target, and while this is going down a little bit compared to last year, we're using $120,000 of this accumulated fund balance to reduce your taxes. Now, that's all well and good, but how are we spending your money? Just the bottom line is, it has gone up a little bit, or it did go up some between 2012 and 2013. But we're bringing it down a little again this year. So the tax rate for folks is virtually 0% increase. How is the tax rate calculated? You take the amount to be raised by taxes, you divide it by the grand list that's available for taxation. Some people are entitled to an exemption from tax. Veterans, if the voters approve it, the Grange Hall, and the Shaftsbury Museum. We're not quite sure what those adjustments are, but they're taken out of the grand list. And then that number, that new number, is what's used to determine the tax. So this is the amount we want to raise, and this is what the tax rate is going to be if the grand list stays the same. Every year the grand list seems to go up a little bit. The only reason I put this confusing slide here is after we did the reappraisal, you know, the value, the grand list value for the whole town went up dramatically, which means the tax rate goes down. But as you can see, 32 cents is what the tax rates remained for about 4 years with some slight variation. Well, for 3 years, and if you approve this budget, for a 4th year. This is going to show you what happens to your, the tax that you may pay. Back in 2001, this was the median value of a Shaftsbury house. And in 2010, this was the median value. So last year, the median, you know, a person owning an average house would have paid $921. This year, they'll pay $913. Virtually the same, you know. So we're not really proposing that people suffer anymore. And this just shows you the median home in relation to, if you're on Social Security retirement income, the average beneficiary nationally gets $1,261 according to the Social Security Administration. And if you're in a $200,000 house, you'll pay about $913 in taxes to the town. So, let's talk about the proposed town garage, because that is going to have an impact on the budget if it's approved. Now, there have been other facility studies done, but the most recent one began in 2009. And to be honest, the initial focus was on Cole Hall because we were overcrowded. The treasurer was working across 7A, and that proved some challenges because the treasurer was not linked in to the network that we were trying to set up at Cole Hall, so there was some communication issues. And Cole Hall itself needed some work, which we started to address through a series of grants to deal with the facility and its lack of effective weatherization. But through the facility study, we learned a few things. Besides Cole Hall being overcrowded and needing repairs, we found that the garage itself, according to the architect who did the evaluation and the engineering firm hired by the architect to assess the structure of the town garage, that the garage was in poor condition and lacked the space for the way our highway department operates. The other significant problem we had is that there is a 4-acre lot just to the north of the town garage that we were allowed to use for a number of years at no cost and then at a very modest rent. That arrangement came to an end. So the equipment, the trucks, the excavator, the sand pile, all that stuff had to be moved off that lot. And we essentially, now we're dealing with the problem that we didn't have enough space for everything. The engineers said that the actual integrity of the steel building, the steel skeleton, the wood frame, the concrete floor, were in fair condition and the interior space in poor condition. They said that's not uncommon for a facility that's 43 years old, like our town garage, given the nature of what it's used for. They also said that the roof had less than 1/2 of the weight-bearing capacity required by state code. In other words, it's not suitable for the type of snowfall that we can get in Vermont if it weren't for global warming.
Was it up to code when it was built?
I can't answer that question.
When it was built up to code, they changed the code.
I can't answer the question.
I could probably answer that. When that building was built, there really wasn't a building code that was recognized by the state of Vermont at the time. So indirectly, it was. I don't know the answer, but with that old structure, we didn't have a building code.
It was purchased in 1969 and erected thereabout. Yes, sir.
Question, is it just the structural integrity of the roof, whereas if it was sistered up with 2x10s rather than 2x6s, it wouldn't pass?
I'm not an engineer, I think. Could you just put in some posts and make it work, Jim?
Honestly, we didn't do the, I'm Jim Secor, by the way, MSK engineering. We didn't do the initial value, or look at that building originally. Highly unlikely, given the age of the building and what I've seen of the building, though we haven't done a detailed structural analysis of it. Plus, the more columns you put in there to break the beam sizes down, it's going to be impractical. Putting those large vehicles in that they've got, as well as maintenance.
How much does a snow rate
What?
cost? Snow rate.
With or without the man up on the roof covered by worker compensation.
You have a 20-foot break, 30-foot.
But you still have to, well, yeah, you'd have to go over to our neighbor's property and then break it from there, I guess, through the trees. Yeah. What we found is we've also got over $800,000 worth of vehicles and equipment that basically has no indoor storage. And most of our equipment, because it's stored outside, it's subject to weather, potentially vandalism and theft. We have had some people gas up at the town's diesel tank. And so that's, we're more aware of what the issues are there. This gives you an idea of how the equipment is stored. Even though this is difficult to see, there's no door on this, this loader backhoe. So all of the hydraulic controls are exposed to weather. This is our calcium chloride truck that we use in the summer for keeping the dust down and retaining fines. All the valves and everything else are out. exposed. Back here are just the, happen to be the various pipes and culverts that the town uses. They're also stored outside. Some years back, I'm not sure when, the town built this shed roof to park the one-ton trucks. Now these trucks are very good. They're smaller and they're very good on the paved roads of plowing in the village. But you can't get all of the truck back in under the shed roof. They stick out from the front wheels on out. And then although you can't see it back in this area, out in the open, basically leaning against the building, are highway signs and the like. This is our backhoe and loader, and this again can't fit within the shed roof, so that equipment is out in all kinds of weather. I tried to get a picture to show you how far back these vehicles are parked. The bumpers are practically right up against the back of the shed roof, so it's not like they parked them out a good 6 or 7 feet to impress the photographer. They're really snug up against the back of the building. Out at the transfer station, this piece of equipment does the mowing. Terry Stacy 2 years ago said the town could do that with the crew we have and get rid of the subcontract on that, which was about $6,000 for one pass of roadside mowing throughout town. But our equipment then just sits out there until it's needed. And this is the water department's storage, some pipes, and right here are some tops that sort of had grading that are used on the tops of the plow trucks, the dump, so that as material is poured into the dump, it breaks up the sand. But again, it's just stored out in the elements to rust. Now, inside the garage, we don't have any dedicated area for welding, which is important for safety, nor do we have any sort of modern eye wash or the like to be able to deal with some sort of accident or emergency. The garage is not energy efficient. We're basically just blowing hot air from the top down. You open up the garage doors to have the trucks go out, all the hot air goes out of the building and starts to reheat again. The road foreman has a small space, probably 6 feet by 8 feet. It's not comfortable enough for us to meet to talk about highway issues. We always meet in Cole Hall because of the heating issues at the town garage. And there's no crew space whatsoever. There are a couple of couches backed up against an area where they repair trucks. Another problem is that our sand is stored outside. It's exposed to moisture. That means when it gets wet and it freezes as chunks. That stuff gets into the sanders and the equipment and is very hard on the truck sanding equipment. We do have salt storage, but that shed is so small that we have to regularly get loads of salt. The salt is not put on pure, it's basically mixed with sand, and it's mixed outdoors and stored outside. And once that sand-salt mixture gets subject to any kind of precipitation, basically the salt just flows away with the water. And you're just wasting all that salt that's been mixed in with the sand. This is the salt shed, and trying to show you it's undersized. Plus, if it gets wet, it basically just runs out of the shed. I took this picture because this is one of a number of openings. So the shed itself, here's another one, is not even weather tight. So the the salt's exposed even though it has a roof on it. This is the sand pile where the stuff is mixed, and as you can see, you know, in the kinds of weather we have, it freezes, it thaws, it freezes, it thaws, and that's going to make the salt dissolve and become a waste. The recommendation we got from the architect was, considering its structural problems, the eyesore dilemma, the lack of necessary space in the building, and on-site for adding on, not to mention the impact on parking and traffic on the site, we're led to believe that this building should be demolished and a new garage constructed on a secondary site. This is the Cole Hall property right here. It's 1.4 acres. This is a right-of-way serving this lot up here. We thought about trying to construct a pole barn to provide unheated storage for our summer construction equipment, a garage that was large enough to house our winter maintenance equipment, plus a repair bay, and a sand salt shed. But the 1 acre lot couldn't support it. And this sort of gives you a view as to why not, because this is our land here. As you can see where Cole Hall is situated, the Veterans Memorial's over here, and then the current garage. It was just not practical to try to make it work on this site. The Facilities Committee, in conjunction with the Select Board, considered a variety of options. Steel prefabricated building, a structural steel building, a wood frame building, and a precast concrete building like they make it at Peckham's. So we've considered a variety of different options when we were coming up with the conceptual design for how we were going to meet our highway department needs. And once we got to that point, we realized we needed help from MSK Engineering, who successfully bid on providing the pre-engineer services. Now, what the town asked MSK was not to come up with a final design. We asked them to do a preliminary design so we could determine costs and a bid strategy going forward. And so Jeff Goldstone is here as an architect who has an office in the building with MSK Engineering, and Jim Secor is here to talk about what the proposed plan is.
But you're gonna speak. Okay, just a preliminary matter. Jim is a resident of the town of Shaftsbury. Say your name again? Jeff is not a resident of the town of Shaftsbury. The rules are that you have to be a resident in order to address the congregation. If there's no objection, we're going to let him speak about the garage, right? You okay with that?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
It's Jim Secor, I've been a resident for a number of years. Our office is right across the street in front of the post office, as probably many of you already know. Had a number of people come in trying to put their mail in once in a while. Jeff is affiliated with our company and now has an office in our building. We put the proposal together with the town on this project. Do you have the aerial photograph?
Such as it is.
Yeah, is it possible to do the thing again with the lights on? I know it gets a little dark up front, just so everybody can see it a little better. What we're proposing, everybody knows where the transfer station is, of course, right here, North Road, Airport Road, is to come in off the same intersection, improve that to AOT standards for commercial, industrial, put a secondary driveway down through this area where there's already a light platform. Looks like years ago they may have mined that at one time for the gravel. The overall site impact is about 3.5 acres with the on-site septic disposal area and a well and their well shield and isolation distances for the septic system. As we said, this will be improved, new drainage put up here, will still be enough room that people can still stack up in front of the transfer station, waiting for the gate to open and still allow vehicles to come down onto the site. We're looking at a 25-foot driveway, gravel, be a security fence up in this area. The site will be monitored with cameras for security, as we said, as well as motion sensor LED lighting, so if somebody does try to get up there at night, the lights will come on automatically, and that'll also add additional protection for security and give the vehicles proper lighting when they have to go out at night. What we're looking at is approximately 8,700 square foot building here for the garage and office space. This will also have a repair garage. Jeff will talk more about the buildings themselves. And there'll also be an office in there for the water superintendent. Salt storage building here. That'll accommodate the raw salt as well as the sand and mixing. This will be roofed over, protected. There'll be a paved apron in front so that right now, there's recommendations on how to handle salt, and the town is not doing that at this time because there is major concerns of salt runoff off property, doing contaminations both with drill wells as well as the waterways. In this case, this will be designed to the A&R standards, so even during the loading operations, the platform that they'll be putting it on will be paved, and that'll back drain back into the building, also give them the capability to push any waste materials back into the shed. Then there'll be a pole barn type structure here for secure storage, fueling operation for the trucks, and then back there a flat area for storage of construction equipment, pipes, etc. The storage building will also accommodate the piping, and other large structures that the water department needs. Can you flip to the section here? This gives a more detailed plan. Here's the driveway coming in. The building up at top where Joe now keeps the water department truck will stay there. That's also a small park storage. The other structures will come down. This will be where the gate access is. Parking on site. The septic area. Approximate location of the well. And then the gravel area, salt shed, and the storage building. This is zoned industrial versus village residential. Across the street, over here is Ham's transfer station and his maintenance facility for his trucks. Over here is where Craig Weaver rents from Trevor Mance for his construction site. The site is going to be built into the bank here, and the tree lines along this edge will be left intact, so it'll be screened from off-site visually, so it won't have any adverse impact to the neighborhood. So under the
The large garage building, which Jim pointed out is about 8,700 square feet, consists of 4 zones. The large garage with 4 bays, which has a 49-foot deep bays, which is large enough for the trucks that will be stored there in the winter, as well as an area in front of the trucks for the repair of small equipment, so that when the crew has time to work on the summer equipment at the same time as the trucks are stored, there's room in here. There will be an area in this area for the storage of town equipment. It's a loft space up the stairs, as well as a mechanical space. Then we have the second garage, smaller garage, in this area with a higher ceiling to accommodate another fleet of trucks, which I would ask Terry or perhaps Jim to be specific about which trucks parks where, when, but 3 more bays here. This is a repair bay large enough to repair the largest equipment that the town owns, and which would include a lift for lifting heavy equipment out of trucks, engines, etc. And then in this end, cut off slightly, is the office part of the building, with the office for the highway manager, a small common area where large enough to have instructive classes, set meetings, and then toilets and an office for the water department. I want to very briefly talk about the construction of the building. As Lon pointed out, we did look at a variety of options. We looked at them in terms of cost, and we looked at them in terms of durability. We looked at a steel structure, pre-manufactured steel structure, and a precast concrete structure, and we ended up deciding to go with a wood structure, so it's a conventionally framed building. One of the advantages of that is that the town employees can maintain the building better than they could with one of the other types of structures, and the durability of that structure, the longevity of the structure should be better than it would be if it were a manufactured building. So we're looking at a 2x8 wall with a wood truss roof, very conventionally built, and of course the building will be built to the newest energy standards. We're talking about using a radiant heat system in 4 zones so that the slab would actually provide heat for the building, and that's it's a good system for the garage because the temperatures can be kept quite low, and yet it's comfortable for people who are working under trucks, and it melts the snow off those trucks. The large drains that you see across these 2 garages are for draining the water so they can rinse off the bottoms of the trucks when they come in after they're out plowing the roads, etc. Getting the snow off the bottoms of the trucks, the salt off the trucks so they can be maintained within the building. And the building would be outfitted with a heat recovery ventilation system, which would efficiently provide fresh air to the building all the time, and when there's high humidity conditions, as there are in the winter when the trucks have been washed off, that ventilation system is kicked to a higher level, and you can bring fresh air in without exhausting all the heat. Lon also pointed out the efficiency of the system, which uses the slab to heat the building. When the door is open, the slab doesn't lose all its heat the way an air system would, and it's a more efficient system to run. I think that pretty much highlights the issues with that building. There are 2 elevations of the building. The main elevation showing the garage doors, a side showing a deep overhang over the garage doors to protect right in front of the doors from snow, and the small area on this side of the building where the offices are. I don't need to go on to that quite yet. I went the wrong direction. I apologize. Well, we don't need that. Let me talk about the other 2 structures very briefly. We don't have illustrations for those, but they were mentioned. The first being the salt and sand shed. That building would be a concrete up to about 10 feet, so we have a push wall so that the loaders can push against those walls to load, and then there would be enough area within the building beyond the salt and sand piles to park the loader so that the loader is always available right in the shed. And as Jim pointed out, there would be an apron in front of the shed, paved apron, so that any salt that is spilled out in front would be able to be pushed back into the shed, and also any runoff would be contained within that area. Above the 10-foot walls, that's also conventionally framed, and it would have metal siding and an asphalt shingle roof. The storage shed, if there is money in the budget to cover that, would be a pole barn, and it's about a 4,000 square foot building with an additional 500 square feet of covered area in the back. This would be a lockable building with sliding barn doors in the front, and that is primarily for highway department storage. It would also have metal panel siding, and it would also have the asphalt shingle roof. So those are the highlights. I'm sure there'll be questions, but...
Jeff, could you mention 2 things? The fueling station?
Yes.
And the recovery system and the floor drains?
I'm going to ask Jim to talk about the recovery system, but I'll mention the fueling system, the fueling station. There's a diesel fueling station that is currently behind Cole Hall. That'll be relocated behind the pole barn right here, and that'll be screened and it will be locked so that hopefully with the security lights, cameras, the screening and the lock, people won't be able to siphon fuel out of that anymore, except those who are supposed to. And the other thing you wanted to mention
was the oil water?
Yeah, the drains within the building. And I'll ask Jim to talk about that because that's more in his area.
Right now, this is going to be under a couple of state permits, one of which we've already gotten, which is for the well and the septic. Septic's going to be here and the well's here. We'll also be under a stormwater management permit, which is for the site itself. This is going to be designed so everything is going to drain, surface runoff from the buildings will drain back into a treatment area here prior to runoff natural drain its way back out this direction. As far as the floor drain system, we'll be under another agency and natural resources permit for that, and hopefully I've got the right button. The state of Vermont is pretty specific about floor drains. And we don't put them in very often, but in this case, it's pretty much mandatory because of the snow melt issues. These trench drains will have trash racks at these locations, so large debris can be taken out. These will both tie into underground line or under slab line that will go into a oil water interceptor, probably located in this area. That will then separate any oils, hydraulic or motor oils, etc. And it's going to have its own containment basin inside the unit itself. That containment basin will have an alarm system so that if the oils come up to a certain level, it can tell the crew, hey, you better get out here and clean me out. If, for some reason, the alarm system doesn't work or they ignore it, and it gets high enough that it's going to fill that basin, it will fail safe and not allow the water to discharge pollutants to exterior to the building. It will back up into the trench drain systems, and then they'll probably make sure they clean it. This will then discharge out to the water side will discharge into an in-ground infiltration system. Again, it's all designed to state and federal standards. Is there anything else?
Yeah, we were very concerned about the site being a capped landfill, and if we could back up to
About the site plan?
yeah. And the concern was, you know, what potentially could a crew be exposed to if the landfill is up towards the left. As part of the regulations to cap a landfill, which essentially is a contained unit, there's no drainage out of the landfill. There are no pipes coming out of it. It's meant to retain everything within the landfill. And to determine whether or not anything is coming out of the landfill, we have monitoring wells, and I think, Jim, you've marked them,
Yeah,
some of them.
You've got a monitoring well up in here. That's the, I think they call it the Old Town Well. There's a series, I believe there's 3 or 4 that run along the old drive, the roadway.
They're on there, actually.
Is it?
Yeah.
You got better eyesight. Then there's a series that also run along this edge of the property line. All these through CAS, who your environmental firm is that monitors the site. This old one has had some minor hits over time. These have never had any. They've gotten one small one, I think, on the last round of testing and one in this far corner. And then these have never had any. Even with those, tell me if I'm wrong, but I think all of them still meet the drinking water standards with the exception of possibly this one on one of the contaminants.
Right, and the problem with the one, number 9 at the lower left, is that it was
Down in here.
too much turbidity, meaning too much clay or other material for it to be adequately tested. So hopefully when that settles, it can be retested and we can determine if it's an issue or not. But by and large, the water, there are no contaminants so far that would threaten that site. And we have it tested twice a year, every year, to determine if there are any problems with groundwater contamination.
Can you have them explain the primary water flow direction as it's understood?
Right now, CAS is indicating the predominant water flow is from this upper corner down in this direction, right now. And realize these monitoring wells aren't designed to potable water standards. The new drill well, which we've indicated, is over here. It's got to be a bedrock grouted well. So basically, it doesn't allow surface water infiltration to contaminate that wellhead. And it's not because of the dump. It's just our standard design for any kind of water supply that's potable.
That's pretty good, Joe. Should we turn the lights on?
Yeah, unless there's any questions on the site or anything they may want to. Yep. Sorry.
What's the snow load rating of the roof?
This one right here.
Not that it's going to happen like the existing building where
This is designed to
it's stating their infinite wisdom 20 years from now decides it's the wrong snow load. What's the snow load on
This will
this?
be designed to 50 pounds per square
Excuse me?
foot. 50 pounds per square foot.
All right, yeah. But the Vermont is 36, right?
It's We're in a
It used to be
transition zone.
36.
Yeah, it used to be.
It's a 70-pound ground snow level, and depending on the slope and the type of
Well,
roof,
in-
it's 36 to 40 on the
Well, I
roofs.
noticed the pitch on that is really not that steep.
No, it's not, but that,
It's a 5-12 we've had on that one.
I understand it's going to be radiant heat.
Yeah, in Bennington area, we're in transition. You can go as low as 40 if you go down in the Bennington Pownell area.
on the roofs,
No,
yeah.
no, different subject, radiant heat in the floor.
That's correct.
What's the prep going to be underneath that to stop infiltration of the mold?
There'll be 2 inches of rigid insulation, which is required by code, by the energy
Yeah.
code
And that's
now.
continuous.
And the edges of the
Stone
slab will
on-
be
crushed
isolated.
stone underneath?
Could I just ask if a question gets asked, could you let them answer and then ask the next question rather than people talk at the same time? Would that be okay? Okay.
Completing the question, the answer, there'll be a minimum of 6 inches of crushed stone as capillary break below, and there will be a vapor barrier between the two.
Yeah.
Jim, you have a special, specified area for truck repair.
Yeah.
Northeast corner,
Yeah, you got the floor plan?
that lighter green area.
Right there, yeah.
You have 4 big bays on the left there. Trucks are out of the shed practically every day. Why can't one of those empty bays be used for truck repair rather than having that whole extra bay for that?
I might turn to,
Well, that's because of the welding features, right?
well, also, there's no trench drain in here for protection in case there's any catastrophic spills during the renovation. This is gonna be beefed up for, we've got a crane or a railing here that'll be used for be able to pick up the plows, the buckets, the rams, pull a motor if they needed to, for example. As Terry says, there'll be a designated welding area, will be in this area, as well as the OSHA requirements
Again,
for high washes.
Like that, one of the bays on the other side be raked up the same way. I mean, the truck's gonna be out of there when it's out on the road, which is 90% of the time.
You have to
Seems
put
like
another
an awful
firewall
extra
in.
expense for a building for this town of Shaftsbury.
Part of the concern was that the length of the bay for the longest piece of equipment has to do with a fully extended
Greater. Or
Bucket.
that- Or that's.
The excavator.
the excavator.
That, the length of
And-
that building though is the same length as the building on the left.
It's about 7 feet longer, but it's not that significantly longer. It's about 7.5 feet longer.
Again, that makes my question, that's one question on, I mean, there's an awful lot of, I agree, a new town garage is needed. What we have is in poor shape, the area does not have sufficient square or acreage to support any new construction. But I just think this is over-designed, over-expensive for the town of Shaftsbury. Our taxes are going up next year, the education tax is automatically going up, the gasoline taxes are going up, and we're hard pressed now for our real estate taxes. For all the delinquent taxes in this town, granted, some of them have been picked up, but it just keeps going up and up and up every year, and I think this is too much.
Again.
I agree with that gentleman, and you've got 6 power vehicles you use in the wintertime. You've got your summer equipment that you don't use obviously in the wintertime. You build a larger pole barn, put your summer equipment in there in the wintertime, put your winter equipment that you're not using in the pole barn in the summertime, and save a hell of a lot of money, and have some of them bays do dual duty as a repair garage.
I'm gonna pass over to you, Demond, for
That-
programming issues.
Yeah, I understand your comment, but the dump trucks are also doing double duty in the summer.
I
And
understand that, but you don't need 6 trucks going out there
Okay.
all the time.
What is the average per square foot cost of a commercial building in this area these days?
in what respect? In construction or rental or?
Construction.
I can tell you what our,
I want to know what the average is for an estimate for a new construction construction of a
Yep.
commercial building.
Yep, I can tell you what we came up with, John, when we ran those when we ran the budget, well, I did a complete takeoff when I did the construction costs. I think I got those numbers right here by square foot. Because it depends on the type of building, of course, and what's in the box.
And this is the standard.
Yeah, let me just, hold on, I got it right here. I want to say this one came out, now let me just pull it up. I got it.
Dave, you can use the podium if you'd like to set your stuff out.
Now you're gonna tell, now
That way you've got the
I
microphone.
was going to say, now I'm not going to be able to pull that exact number off the top of my head. When we ran the numbers, we compared it to, hold on just a second. Off the top of my head, John, I've got to say that we're looking at that building coming in around $85 a square foot.
That doesn't make $100 million and a half.
There's site costs, the general construction costs, the other building costs for the other structures. And I honestly do not have my takeoff for the square foot number.
Calculations at $100 a square foot, which I think is a lot, and that's still way less than $1 million. And even if you had the two pole blocks in, it's under $100,000. Where's the other $500,000 coming from?
You got the, oh, there it is right here. What I did, that number is, well, right there's your bonding costs, your insurance costs, your management fees, your insurance fees for the contractor, garbage, whatever. Your site costs, of course, your excavation, backfill. The town, though, will be doing some of the clearing of the site, as well as rough grading, to the tune of probably saving about $40,000. That's not included in that number. There's your concrete costs for your foundation systems. These miscellaneous metals, just minor bollards and protection. The main building cost is right here for the garage. Doors and windows, etc. Finishes, sheetrock, painting. Your electrical costs and communications costs. Plumbing, and that also includes the boiler system and the in-floor radiant. You got our ventilation costs are in here for the heat recovery, and, well, just a one-time purchase for the boiler. The thermal moisture is your insulation system, as well as the roof. We had some minor miscellaneous specialties, the bulk of that being the trench drain system. So you got to realize, too, that we've now got a new building code that took effect last, I believe it was October, as well as an energy code. Our construction costs have gone up since then because of those codes.
Right now, this thing is looking at about $160 a square foot.
No, it's not. Not when you look at the basic construction cost, John. And honestly, I don't physically have that number in front of me on what my numbers came out to exactly. I thought I'd brought it, but I didn't think we'd be talking about square foot costs tonight on this meeting. I believe, and without those numbers in front of me, I can't tell you off the top. I think it came out a little bit less than 100 for the main building. The salt shed, I want to say, was in the $60 to $70 range. Those are building costs. Those, your site costs and overhead and profit. Of course, we've also got a contingency number down here of $125,000. Your overhead and profit costs, we're looking at $180,000. Those are separate costs from that. And those numbers compare to, for example, town of Bennington, when they did their costing for a similar structure, of course larger because they got more vehicles, they ended up with a low-end price of $85 per square foot with those costs taken out, upwards of high as $140. So we're in that same ballpark number that they had used.
Could you explain how you came up with those numbers you did at the last meeting?
These numbers here?
Yeah.
I physically, how many people know my history, but I was in general contracting for a number of years until I sold my business out a few years ago, McDonald Secor Associates. These are either firm quotes or construction estimates that I did based on if I was going to build this as a general contractor again. I got pricing for concrete, I got pricing for the electrical, the mechanical systems came from our mechanical designer, the doors, windows. I even Greenberg's priced up how many studs we needed and how much sheathing we needed on the building. So these weren't taken as square foot numbers out of a means, cost, and estimate, but this was taken as if I was going to bid this job and I was still in general contracting.
Yes, sir.
Did we ever actually price out the cost of the alternative in terms of metal prefab construction?
What we're proposing to do, a couple things. When we first came in on this, we were going to go pre-engineered metal building. I used to sell metal buildings, and they were coming in cheaper than on this type of structure than a stick-built would have back when I was still building them five years ago. With the new energy codes, our prices for metal buildings have gone up dramatically because of the requirements for using rigid insulation around the systems. Metal buildings are not the most energy efficient building you can ever imagine. They're probably one of the worst. And what we're proposing to the town is that we put this out to, the basic building will be wood frame. We're going to also propose to the town that we put the bid alternates. One is, if a contractor can do a better number and still meet the design criteria for the building and the energy code, we will entertain looking at a pre-engineered price. We'll also entertain into a precast price. Peckham's right here, Daly's right here. We looked at the number for a salt shed doing that, and it was quite a bit higher than doing it with regular concrete and wood frame. But we'd more than happy to entertain a precast price as well. So we're going to be able to give a number of alternates that the select board then can pick and choose from after the bids have come back in. So we will be able to explore that in the hard case.
It's just hard to vote on, you know, the top line number without having the.
When we first looked at it, we were fairly myopic about prefabricated steel building, and one member of the facilities committee said we should look at wood. Wilmington has just built a wood garage at a cost that seemed very affordable. They have a small highway department. So based on that, we started looking at a couple of other towns that have built wood-framed town garages, and the prices seem very competitive compared to the prefabricated steel. So that's how we ended up looking at this particular material.
And we felt it was going to be something that's going to be easier to maintain in the future with town and local talent versus getting to the pre-engineered.
There are a couple other people, John. Can I?
I just want to ask about the heat, talking about the insulated heating, but what's the heating source?
Propane. We're proposing a high-efficiency propane boiler.
Is there any thought that we can put it in a wood-fired boiler?
Yes.
And
And we're not at that point. We've only got a preliminary engineering design. We're going to look at those things when we go to the next level if the bond is approved. In the back?
Just be advised, I'm in the Vermont National Guard. Every one of our vehicles in the detachment, 131 engineered detachment, is outside. We're the same company that rebuilt all of those who Vermont Coaster.
Could you speak up, please?
Yes, I'm one of the 131 detachments.
Do I come on up to the microphone?
And all of our vehicles are outside. Our garage bay to maintain these vehicles are, it's 3 bays with a additional 20 to 25 feet for offices, bathrooms, changing rooms, eye wash centers, storage rooms, and what. I'm not saying that this is a good thing or a bad thing. I'm just saying maybe there's a different way to build this. I'm not saying don't put your vehicles undercover. I got my 78 bus undercover. I understand what that means, but maybe there's a different way.
What is that different way?
Smaller, better, cheaper.
And how would you do that?
Do we need 7 bays?
Well, I'm just asking
starters?
you what you would propose be different.
Do we need 7 bays for starters?
Yeah, 6 of the bays are for trucks that go out
Actually, I saw 8 bays if you include the extra bay to do the extra maintenance.
6 bays are used every time trucks are going out to plow and then come back in and get cleaned up, get the sand and salt out of the operating equipment. So 6 bays are needed in order to bring those trucks in so they can be cleaned out so that they're ready to operate when we get them out in the next storm.
And
if you have sand running through gears and spinners and all that, if you don't clean it out, that equipment's not going to be ready to run the next time out. One of the trucks' bays is for the water department, and the repair bay, if we have equipment that has to be worked on, right now we've got a loader that's being worked on that's jammed in front of a couple of trucks. You know, what are you saying? That you put this piece of equipment, the loader that has to be worked on, and then you don't bring in the plow truck in the wintertime to clean it off and get it ready for the next storm? The idea was with a dedicated bay, they can do the work and still have the rest of the fleet ready for like winter maintenance to get out there when the storms come.
I'm not disputing what you're saying. I'm saying that there has to be a different way to do it.
Well, we've spent, the problem with that, just from my perspective, is we've spent since 2009 sort of studying this issue, and if you could tell me this is a better way, then that gives me something to work with. If you say it's too expensive, I can understand that, it's too expensive. If you tell me to do 3 bays this way and 4 bays that, or just leave everything outside, I can understand that. But to say there's got to be something better doesn't provide me any information that I can work with. And so if people are critical, that's great if they can present an idea that gives me something to work with. Yep, Barry?
Just occurred to me with the last comment that if you get 6 trucks out plowing and they need to come in and get washed down, I certainly understand it. Is there anything wrong with washing 2 of them at a time? Or 3 of them at a time?
Yeah.
Or do they all have to be washed at once?
Well, if you want your crew to get in and get out and not pay for 4 other crew members to be standing around waiting to wash their trucks.
Well, I'm thinking about the flexibility of this in the sense that, well, maybe you pay 2 of them to stay and wash the trucks and you send the other 4 guys home. I mean, I think there's some way to play with this, you know, maybe in a little more efficient way, rather than build this grand structure. I love it. I'd love to have it. But, you know, as somebody else said, we got a lot of taxes coming down on our heads right now.
Terry?
Yeah, I'd like to answer that if I could. If it's below 20 degrees out, it's tough to wash trucks outside. The chain beds in the box rotates on bearings. You have the salt spreaders on the bottom of the truck. That's the problem. The 2 salt trucks never get sprayed off. They park outside all the time. When we can, we rotate them out. We plug in the other truck out in front of Cole Hall's yard on a lead cord, wash the 1 ton off, and bring it in the garage. And just to go back to the building a little bit there, if the trucks have the plows on them, they'll only have 4 feet of clearance between the wall and the plow of this new building, except for the 4 larger bays. That was left a little bit bigger there, so in case we needed to rebuild the mower head for the next summer, redo the chloride tank, build the loader that we're building right now, we could do it in front of them bays and not tie up the bigger repair bay. We have 3 gentlemen, Ron, 2 other guys that are very experienced mechanics. They sleeved the old Cat grader engine, put new pistons and rings in it, and nobody here ever knew about that because there was never a bill for it. They took care of all the maintenance inside of our garage. About 5% of our repairs of our equipment go to a subcontractor. Everything else is done in-house in this town for the town, and they don't even realize that. That's how smart of the people we got. That's why we're asking for a repair bay. Also, the state mandates a welding area. You can't have it in the other areas. That's why it's separated from the other areas. It's larger because we have 2 large graders and 1 large excavator. They've got to fit in it.
When the trucks go out, just another question on the same, when the trucks go out to plow, do they all come back at the same time?
Yeah, absolutely not. And like in the mornings now, we started a new, like Lon was saying, a flexible schedule. I called everybody last night, we knew it was snowing. 2 guys came in at 4 a.m., load their trucks, go out. The next 2 guys came in at 4:30. The 2 asphalt guys came in at 5. So the loader was available, so everybody wasn't standing there waiting to load their trucks.
No, what I'm saying is, so it is possible to flexibly use fewer days to wash them down if they're not all coming back.
But you can't leave, well, yes, but you can't leave them outside after they're all the gears and everything are wet.
After you wash them?
Right, you gotta leave them inside to let them dry.
How long does it take?
You won't get into it in the morning if you leave it outside at 20 degrees.
Yeah.
The general conditions, I was a contractor for 22 years, and I was a clerk of the works for 13 years. The general conditions are low. It should be at least 10% of the bottom line there.
Yeah.
Government contracts, I've probably seen 2 dozen of them in 13 years. And the general conditions, yes, you need a new building. I'm not saying you don't need a new building. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying the general conditions are low.
You may have seen that, I'm not sure on your contract's work, but I pulled the overhead and profit out as a line item separate from that. I've seen a lot of guys throw their overhead and profit in the general conditions section, and that would then more than double it.
It's 10%.
Yeah.
Okay, so that would be more like 155,000 as opposed to the 114?
Yeah.
Yes.
Is this proposal to the railway line? And if so, if it is reasonably close, then have you given consideration to bringing in bulk supply of sand and salt by rail, and thereby taking heavy trucks off the road in and around Shaftsbury?
Well, right now at the current facility, we can't deal with a large volume of salt. The salt shed is just way too small for anything other than what we're doing right now. There is a railroad track that goes by along Airport Road, but I don't know if it's in service, and I don't know if we could unload it.
The closest rail yard would be Daly's. They can unload rail cars there, and then I think the next one's Whitman's.
No, I can't anymore.
They can't anymore? Oh.
Whitman's is the only place.
Yeah. So there's no railhead around for unloading in this area, except for North Bennington. Yeah.
So you can't put a small siding in?
But I don't think there's enough right-of-way for the spur, because right there is the Heron Creek, right next to that railhead. Yeah.
Yes.
You know, what are the costs of demolition of the existing buildings and associated remediation? Where is that reflected on the chart?
It's in the 43 that the town's going to self-perform. There's not much in there for demolition. It's a slab that used to, I think a trailer used to be parked on it, and I think there was one small storage shed. That was it. The town is going to take and move the bulk of the gravel out, clear the trees, as well as put the roadway in and clear the site, level the site to within 12 inches for the contract. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, we would keep it for a period of time because we have a sidewalk machine that has to clear the sidewalks, and we'd need a small structure in town, so we haven't planned exactly how we're going to do that yet, and then the garage would come down once we worked out the plan for the sidewalk machine. That has to have some sand of its own, but my guesstimate is we could do that with through our budget. I don't know that we would need to borrow money to do that. Yes.
How long are the trucks?
The new truck with a plow on it or without?
Both.
The new truck is 32 feet long with a plow on it. Let's say 26 feet probably with the plow on it, 27 feet, the shorter ones are.
There's no way you can double park inside that building. There's a lot of waiting space in the back side of that building. 50 feet long.
Want the floor clean back up?
That was the area that we were hoping to bring in our summer equipment that we rebuild, like,
I mean, that's a 50 by, I'm just saying 50 by 100. It seems like a really big empty space for, have to set aside for repairing the small summer equipment.
well, that's summer mowers. The large four-wheel drive, huge tractor with big engine on it. Or the chloride truck's the same size truck that, without a snowplow on it. I mean, there's still bigger equipment. But,
You got the back side of both of those bays that are, seems like mostly, like, yeah, all the back side of those 7 bays is theoretically just empty most of the time.
the 3 bays are only about 4 feet. The 4 bays is where the extra space is.
So this is, I'm sorry. That's where your summer equipment's going to be stored and maintained.
Bring in to work on it one at a time. Right now we have a loader.
Right now, this fills up when the trucks are in, fully set up with gear for the winter time. Your plows, whatever.
Like Ron's plow broke right off the truck on Tuesday, the snowstorm. 2 hours later, I sent one of the guys back 2 hours later, he had it all welded, the frame back together, machine parts back on it, welded back together, back on the road. If we don't have a spot to do that, I mean...
I was going to say, well, now you don't have a spot to do it, but you just did it.
Yeah, in a regular day, we're...
Yeah. So it just seems like you could make it half as big, and you pull the truck out in the summertime to work on equipment, and or go park in the old building, don't tear it down and use that as your pole barn. This seems the building's sort of a Taj Mahal. That's just my opinion. I'm just glad you brought the fact you guys rebuild an engine and do that. Nobody knows what you guys do other than you're not doing something to see the road got plowed.
5% of the work was out of our garage. Everything else is done in-house.
I just think there's a lot of space in there that would be nice to have if we need it, but do you need all that empty space behind it where you're parking the trucks?
It's where the 4 trucks are parked. Right now, Saturday, I couldn't get around the front of a truck to get out the... I couldn't get out the front door of...
50 feet long, so it's leaving 18 feet by the length of that building, there's potentially nothing in it. Behind both sets of doors. All 7 doors behind the front.
No, I think the comment was just made that the 3 doors to the right are as long as the trucks are. And the 4 doors to the left provide some room for work to be done in front of the trucks. The current garage, once the truck, if I could finish. In the current garage, once a truck is pulled in there, especially over towards Terry's office, you cannot walk between the front of the truck and the garage door because there's absolutely no space.
I'm talking about the new building, not the old one.
Right.
And if you say you're going to do repairs in that area, I thought only welding could be done in the repair shop. So I'm getting confused on why we have this extra room if you only do repairs in the other building. And I'm talking about more of the design, not against anyone in the town that's working there. But if they're going to be doing repairs there, you just said before you can't because the welding restrictions all have to be done over the other building.
The welding.
Why do you still need that space for doing repairs?
Because there's other type of work that's done besides welding.
Such as, where did you rebuild the engine? In the shop part or in that space?
Terry, what other kind of work are you doing?
Repacking the cylinders on machines that will take the big cylinders off, repack them. Rebuilding the big mower deck. Piping the chloride truck, we've done that twice because the pressure of the pump just keeps blowing the pipes out, so we repiped it a couple different ways. Just to give you ideas. There'd be no welding out in the main shop. It is just, the state said we can't do that. We don't put the firewalls up. The engine job would have to be done in the repair bay because the overhead rail that Jim spoke of to lift the head up or whatever off the motor.
Yes.
If I could just ask a question, it seems that the significant opportunity for some, there's a big difference between what we have now and what we're proposing. It seems pretty clear to me more than what we have, but what's not clear is whether or not a cost analysis has been done to either, to on one hand, demonstrate that with heated indoor facilities for all of our equipment, we would then presumably save money on the depreciation of that equipment over time because that equipment will last longer. It will need less repair, right? So there's a financial benefit, presumably, to providing the town with what we're proposing right here. I think that needs to be understood. And on the other hand, what would the cost be of continuing to run like we do, or some half measure to say we have heated storage for the equipment that's most sensitive to weathering? And like David pointed out and others, some of this equipment is made to withstand extreme weather conditions. So how much do we really shorten the life of some of this equipment if we just leave it outside? Right? And is that incremental cost, minuscule with respect to what we save by building, let's say, half of what we have here in terms of indoor heating storage?
Okay. Yes.
Has an environmental impact study been done for the new site? And how about the old site? Is that going to have an investigation on the environmental impact that's already been done to that site? The cost then figured in.
For the current site, we have not studied what the impact is going to be.
How much is it going to cost us?
How much is it going to cost to do an environmental study? That's not something we've planned for.
But you have to do it.
I'm not aware of us having to do that, no.
Not under the Vermont Act?
No.
There's no history of any incidents, buried tanks or anything like that I'm aware of that would require that to be done.
Okay, and on the other site, the new site, we're having to get permits from, on stormwater.
Water, sewer, stormwater, as well as the trench drain system.
Right.
And that all comes from Agency of Natural Resources.
And we're not required to get an Act 250 permit because it's a small municipal project, it's exempt. And in terms of our own concern about the sites, we asked Jim Secor to look at the CAS reports on the groundwater to get a sense of whether or not we're dealing with any potential groundwater problems due to the cap landfill.
And solid waste has been notified about the possible project, and they haven't come back with any concerns either.
So the state, as far as we can tell, is comfortable with what we're planning to do. And early in the process, we asked the Agency of Natural Resources if the town was going to be prohibited from building at that site below a capped landfill. And I was a little surprised. They said, no, we're not concerned. Why don't you get us the specifics? And when we did get them the specifics, they gave us our wastewater water supply permit. So they're the experts. Yes.
Yeah. My experience with covering equipment is mostly with school buses, but I can tell you that you'll probably find a significant savings in rubber type things like hoses, cables, and windshield wipers, just by having them undercover. But the other thing I'd like to say is that regardless of the space, and I know you put in a lot of time and effort studying the needs and particularly the future needs, reducing a project like this by 25% of space probably only saves you 15% of the cost. And my biggest concern is make it big enough now, because I don't want your successors to come back to us 5 years from now and say we need $1 million to expand it by 30%.
Exactly right.
Yeah,
especially when the tax effect is only a cup of coffee a week.
That's right.
The North Bennington Graded School did some substantial improvements, and they didn't estimate their costs correctly, so they couldn't put in their insulated windows, and they had to scale back their project. Jim and I had sort of a dust-up when he originally came in with what I thought was a very high number. And now I'm thankful I reconsidered and listened to him, because right now the bid atmosphere is very competitive. And so, you know, if we want to do this for the long-term lowest cost, now would be our best opportunity to do it, because contractors need the work and are willing to put in very competitive bids. And the cost of financing right now is extremely low. The bond, a 20-year bond, the average, the weighted average, meaning our interest rate, is going to be 3% for this project. Let me tell you what the impact is. No, we have no control over the school. You know, they're going to hike taxes 20%. You know, I'm sorry, there's nothing I can do about it, nothing your select board can do about it. This project, if it comes in as budgeted, if this is your average home price, the first year is an interest-only payment. The bond payments are twice a year. The homeowner of a $200,000 home would pay $16 that first year. The second year is the most expensive year of the bond, because that's when the most interest accumulates. That year they pay $55.18. And it would go down every year in small increments until the last year, when it was $36.36 on a $200,000 home. Now, in terms of what this building, you know, hopefully gives us 40 years of service, if not longer. And at this kind of cost, in this economic environment, gives us the best opportunity to do it cost effectively. The other thing the select board began discussing on Monday was how to create a bid strategy that would allow these dollars to stay in the community. Jim Secor explained that there is a way to ask bidders, large contracting firms that can bond projects, to include two bids, one using local electricians, plumbers, carpenters, and one that is their rock bottom price. We are still, the select board's still discussing it, but the idea is that if, for a reasonable price, we can keep the money in the community, this project will help our tradesmen and suppliers in this community. So it has the possibility of being not just a benefit for facilities, but a benefit for the people who really need work. And that's part of our planning for this project. Yeah?
Let me make it clear, I am in favor of a garage. I am more in favor of this garage if all of the business is within as close as much as possible to town limits. In other words, if I can get some of the work, that local electrician right down the street, that local plumber right down the street, the local woodworking contractor down the street, the concrete guys, everybody, I mean, you gotta go to Bennington, out of town, go to Bennington, you gotta go out of town, you gotta go to Bennington, I understand, or Arlington, or Manchester, or whatever. But if we can keep it inside of Shaftsbury, that means the guys in this room, and the people in the town, are gonna doubly get something out of it.
And that's part of our planning, is to find a way to do it. But if it's, the price is too high,
You put the foot down and you say, here's the deal. This is the price that we're going to do for this, and if you can't do it, then we can't do it.
Aren't there any bid requirements in terms of accepting, you know, a bid that is a fair bid? Are there standards here?
yes, there are standards.
So what are you proposing?
what we're proposing is they have to be qualifying bids, and the select board is discussing whether or not to give a local preference and deciding what that local preference should be. Should it be 3%, 5%, whatever the case may be. But we could decide that if the price were only somewhat higher, but within the range of affordability, however you define that, the select board's got to decide what that is, we could accept a qualified bid that was slightly higher than the low bid, but it would keep tax dollars in the
I
community.
understand the purpose of this, wondering if there was a state law in terms of government agencies contracting, right, without, you know, what I would call a fair bidding.
It would have to be disclosed in the bid documents to all the bidders. It can't be something that all the bids would come in and the select board sits down and says, all right, Fred over here isn't low bid, but I know he's using more local contractors, we're gonna give it to him. We have to disclose what the vetting process will be on those low bids. So as long as we're up front and we can tell the guys, then we're all right. Does that make sense?
That's part of the bid specifications, and that's why the board has to decide how to present that so everyone gets to compete on the same playing field. Yes?
My question is, proportionally, the low-income portion of Shaftsbury, what percentage is it? We've got, how much of this is older population? Is it 40%, 30%? What I'm concerned about is the taxes on the people that are on fixed incomes. We've got to be concerned about them in some way, shape, form, or manner. Some of us may be able to afford this with no problem at all, but you're going to force the older people that have paid their dues 10 times over, they can't afford it. What are they going to do? That's my question.
Yeah. Well, we've spent the last 3 years trying to keep the increase in taxes at 0%. And this would represent 2 cents on the 2 3/4 cents in the tax rate for the first year. We've tried as hard as we can to maintain services, improve town operations, and not raise your taxes. And if it's, you know, we've had cost of living increases that have been higher than 2 3/4 cents. So honestly, I think we're doing the best job we can to keep the taxes level for the municipal tax.
What's the percentage of low income versus whatever in the county?
I don't have that number. I imagine that if we thought of the percentage who get income sensitivity, which means they get some assistance from the state on their income taxes, we could use that as a measure. Judy, do you happen to know what percentage of, or Bill?
Roughly. Roughly, we're talking about, between, the tax benefit is between 15 and 20% of the educational taxes that are levied. I can't tell you, from memory, I just can't tell you the number of households that receive some benefit. Some receive substantial benefits in the thousands of dollars. Others receive, you know, as low as...
we can't give you a number tonight.
Just something to consider.
Yes.
My name is Eric Roderson. I'm a Shaftsbury resident. I own K&E Plastics in East Arlington. And one of the things that keeps coming back to my mind here listening to everybody is, of course, a lot of us are very concerned financially. With taxes going up, we're all getting hit by taxes. We're now talking more taxes in the town. Maybe we should be looking at trying to improve our town and our employees by looking at farming out the highway department to the local contractors in this town and neighborhood. This way, we could reduce the burden to the tax base, which is us, and we could get competitive bids. You've already mentioned that you're getting very competitive bids right now in the marketplace because everybody's looking for work. So maybe we could transition the highway department out of the town into the public sector and have them purchase the equipment that we have, forget spending $1.5 million on a new building, and maybe in 5 years when we're financially sound, then we approach this process and look at spending more money wisely.
We did that.
And what was the cost benefit?
It wasn't, because the towns that retain that have far fewer miles than were the smaller towns. And a couple of the larger towns our size that we heard of through the Vermont League of Cities and Towns thought it was a good idea and contracted out. And within a couple of years, they brought it back in-house because they had no control over the quality of the services they were getting.
Sounds like poor business skills. I mean, how can they not manage what these people are doing if they can't find someone else?
Well, we're putting mowing out to bid again because we were not happy with the service. And that's just the way business is. You go with the service, you like it, you stick with it. If you don't like it or it seems to be getting expensive, you go out to bid again.
And when that cost analysis was done, did that include pensions, maintenance, overtime, health care, and all the other burdens and costs that the town has?
Yeah, we felt it was a dead end because nobody had found it to be successful. And so we get a lot of calls about the condition of the roads and the quality of the maintenance. And when it was pretty clear it was not working for larger towns, we decided it was not what the voters in this town wanted. So we did look at it. Okay.
Okay, thanks for your patience. We can move on to the articles, the rest of the meeting. Before I do that, though, Karen, did you have something that you need to address?
Yes, I
please?
did. Actually, I did. The board and I wanted, the rest of the board and I wanted to take this opportunity to thank Lon. Now that he's done the bulk of the work here, we didn't want to set him off at the beginning of the meeting. He needed, as he said, he didn't want us to even talk about him not being around after this board meeting. He said, I want to be on my game, so don't talk about it. But I'd just like to talk for a minute about how terrific it has been working with him. I think, is it 6, 7 years you've been on the board, Lon? It probably feels like a whole lot more than that. I'm the one that's been the luckiest, I think, to have spent the longest time working with Lon. But I think the rest of the board would agree that he has made all of us better board members, certainly better stewards of the town than I think we could ever have been, because he has modeled behavior that is just exemplary. He is very determined in the way he approaches his work for the town. He never takes himself too seriously, but he takes town business very seriously. And I will just, you know, in making a pitch for the garage, tell you that I think every stone has been turned over in looking at the possibilities, how we can save money. The gentleman that made the comment about not wanting to build too small for what, frankly, a lot of us are hoping is a building that will last us maybe 60 years. We want to have the foresight in doing it right, and that really came from Lon. He has just been tremendous to work with. He makes the job look easy, and it's very difficult. You know, you give up a lot when you take this position on as chair. And he's, I think, just given an awful lot that people just don't realize. So, from the board, from myself, I want to say thanks. We're Really going to miss you. We have a couple little things here for you to take home with you. You don't have to open them now. You might get an idea of what that's about.
A bowling ball.
And at your leisure, you can open them. But we're, yeah.
No. Thank you.
Okay, let's get to the business part of the meeting. If you take a look in your town reports, if you look on page 13, 14, and 15, that's the warning for our meeting. Normally at this point in time, actually it's been a lot of years. Years and years ago, I used to stand here and read it from one end to the other, but usually somebody makes a motion to dispense with the reading of the warning. And move, do I have a second? Any discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. What we're going to do is, I'll ask for an article, I'll state the article, I'll ask for a motion on the article in a second, and then open up the floor for discussion. You can amend an article, a motion once. You can amend the amendment once. And boy, it's getting late. First article, to hear reports of the town officers and take action thereon. You've already heard some of the reports, the budget and such. The rest would be the reports that are contained in here. We don't actually hear them, but usually there is a motion made to accept the reports. Motion's been made. Is it seconded? Any discussion on any of the reports as presented in the annual report? Mark?
I'm Merton Snow. My questions are about the trustee of public funds, which wasn't in the report. And then all I did find on it was on pages 22 and 23. It lists balances of June 2012. Well, I asked for a report and received it, and then I found out the balances are actually June 2011 that are in the report. And my question is, I reviewed the last 3 years. Income was $12,000 to $13,000 each year. Expenses were $6,000 to $7,000 each year. In 2010, the gain was $24,000. 2011, it was $36,000. And last year we lost $14,000. So I would kind of like to know just what happened to that fund.
Yes.
Okay, sure. Thanks, Mark. First of all, just to clarify a point, on pages, let's go back to page 25, you'll see fiduciary trust funds, and those are the public funds of the trustees. They were presented in a different format as we move the financial statements towards the type of financials you would expect to see under generally accepted accounting principles. So I will say to you that you are correct. The type of report you saw in previous years is not there. the auditors and I had a discussion about this, and one of the issues is always the volume of information and the number of pages in the report. And we made a decision to present this in summary fashion this year. So that's what we did. You know, on further reflection, we have thought that perhaps we'll add this as supplementary information in the following year. Now, to answer your question about the performance of the funds, the public funds are managed by 3 trustees. I happen to be one of the trustees, and Ken Coonrad, who has finally decided to withdraw as a trustee after many years of faithful service, and I mean that sincerely. He's worked very hard. He's a really good influence for us. And now Rob Stewart, who's a resident in town and fairly new to, he's also our computer consultant, are the 3 trustees. And we work with Morgan Stanley as an investment advisor. As you probably know from your own investment accounts, interest rates have been going down. And you know, I've known, for example, where we were investing in certificates of deposit, getting somewhere between 4 and 5%. The market right now for these investments is down, depending on the time frame, 1% or less. And so that accounts for some of the income. The other issues that have occurred, corporate bonds are doing the same thing. You know, we're limited by law and our own policy as to how much we can invest in equity securities. And we've been very careful not to exceed that rule. Our rule is we invest no more than 30% of our total funds in equity securities. So that's why we're in income-based securities. Now, as far as the question about losses, the losses shown here are fluctuations in market value. They're fluctuations in market value of investments. We mark the market, if you know what that expression means. We have to adjust changes. Everyone's anticipating there'll be increases in income performance. But where we are right now, you know, we're replacing CDs that are reaching their maturity. You know, 4.5% CD or 4.2% CD is being replaced with a 1.5% CD. We can't get anything better with U.S. Treasuries, for example. And we don't want to look at junk bonds. You know, we're looking at investment grade and actually higher than the lowest level of investment grade bonds. So that accounts for why we've had some good years and we've had a bad year, and we're looking at a much better year this year. So that's the status. Anything else?
Thank you, Bill. Mert, go ahead.
But I'd just like to add that according to Vermont League of Cities and Towns, it says for auditors, the town report should provide a detailed financial statement of receipts and disbursements of all trust funds. So it should have been in. Well, it wasn't in the town report.
Right here, right in the town report.
Where?
I'll show it to you. It's in your book. I'll circle it.
Yeah, would you? Doesn't reflect anything.
It does. It reflects the income, the gains, losses, and the expenses of those funds.
Maybe to your satisfaction.
Well, it does according to generally accepted accounting principles, and I'll point out to you that the town always agreed with the presentation.
One piece of that I don't think was addressed. Mert, you said that those numbers were 2011?
They were. I had them before.
That these numbers were 2011 that are showing as 2012?
He's absolutely correct with those notes. There was a problem in preparing the report, and while these balances that explain each of the funds show a balance as of June 30, 2012 with dollar amounts next to them, those dollar amounts are in fact the balances of June 30, 2011. That was an error. The difference in overall over all the funds is approximately 1% of the fund balance.
Okay. Bill, thank you. Any other questions about the town report? The report of the town officers? Any corrections anybody want to make? There being none, motion's been made to hear the reports and take action thereon. It's been seconded. All in favor of accepting the reports as presented, please signify by saying aye. Aye. The ayes have it. Article 2, to determine A through F, shall select board members each receive an annual stipend of $500? B, shall the town treasurer receive an annual stipend of $16,000? C, shall the town clerk receive an annual stipend of $8,000? D, shall the board of auditors be paid a wage at the rate of $10 per hour? E, shall the first and second constables be paid a wage at the rate of $10 per hour? And F, shall the board of listers be paid a wage at the rate of $10 per hour? You want to make a motion?
Yes, I do. Seeing that they are the same as last year, I make a motion to pay those stipends which listed A through F.
Okay, motion's been made for Article 2, A through F, as presented. Is there a second?
I second it.
Motion's been made and seconded. How about some discussion on Article 2? Any questions? You ready to vote? All those in favor of paying the rates to the various parties and A through F, 2A through F, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Article 3, shall the town vote to exempt the Taconic Community Grange from payment of property tax for a period of 5 years? I need a motion. Motion's been made. How about a second?
I'll second that.
And seconded. Any discussion or questions?
Why do they want that? Why do they deserve it?
How much would they?
Hold on, wait, whoa, whoa, whoa. Stand up, please. Okay.
Why do they want the, are they nonprofit? Why do they want to?
Anybody from the Grange that could address the Grange?
The Grange is nonprofit. The last I knew. And they do a lot for farming. I'm all for it.
Other questions?
I don't know what they do for farming. Someone like me, I don't know anything about.
Got to stand up, please. Got to stand up.
I don't know anything that the Grange does or what they do for farming. Seems though the farms are all going out, so I'm not sure how they help. So just someone enlighten me what the Grange does.
From what I remember, the Grange works with farming. The FAA, Future Farmers of America. It's a dying breed, yes, but there's still some people that are interested, and it's the young kids who want to get involved with this. So if we take away their facilities, they've got no place to meet. It's a darn shame that we let our kids down. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, thank you. Mark, you remember the Grange?
Oh, yeah.
Could I ask you to address the question that's on the floor?
Well, as you probably know, that we have a building that was built in about 1890, and takes a lot of upkeep. Now, the Grange is the patrons of Order of Husbandry. In 1867, I believe it became an order. And it's been a farming organization over the years, but of course, the family farm isn't there anymore. We try to do things in our community. We have a building we spent $32,000 on in the last 4 or 5 years to make it available for the Little Peeps School.
That nursery school?
Which certainly benefits this community, I believe. And so we need a little break on our taxes. I turned in a report of what we were doing, and also I had to put the expenses and our income, and it's just about even all the time over the years. And unless it's been changed, we were designated one time as being a place, well, the Head Start school is right next to our, and they use that in emergencies and things we have, because we're well set up now with the building. It's been vastly improved. And as far as, you know, we've done a lot of things in the past. That doesn't help anyone here as far as what we're doing now. But in years past, we benefited this town an awful lot. One time in the 50s, there were probably 30 of us Grangers went over the Waite Cemetery and cut the trees down that were growing in it, cleaned the brush out. We had a tractor in there mowing. We repaired headstones. We put a new gate on the place, I think even some of the fence, and then said to the town, now, here it is, keep it up, in which they've done a fine job on that. And we did many projects, but we're all growing older too. And when you think of it, maybe I'm one of the younger ones, but that's why we hope that the town would give us some support to keep that.
Is it currently tax exempt?
It is. It has been for, well, I don't know. I think when it came to the point where they started voting on tax exemptions for exempt groups, I think we got in on it. It's a 5-year plan. I don't know how many times we might have received it. Anyone here know?
I'm not sure. I'd only be guessing.
But I don't know what more I can.
Do you know what
that's good.
I just wondered if you knew what the appraised value was. I mean, in other words, what is the impact to the taxpayers if they're curious?
I'll be honest with you, I think the assessors was trying to help the town because I think it's $62,300.
Okay. Bill?
I just want to make the point that the dollar value of what we're talking about here, you can find on page 35 of the report. Bert was correct, $62,300. The town picks up the educational tax piece of that, which was $846, plus the town picks up, let's say 30 cents, it was another 180, so a little short of $1,000 probably that this exemption cost. And I think the town should have to weigh that against the value of the Grange. I'd certainly be in favor of continuing the exemption.
I think if you look on your tax bill, you'll see a little line says something about tax exempt, and it's, most of it's a cup of coffee or something. It's a small amount.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Spread out over the whole budget.
Thank you, Mark. Some other questions? Comments? Ready to vote on it? All those in favor of shall the town vote to exempt Taconic Community Grange from payment of property tax for a period of 5 years, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Article 4. Shall the town authorize collection of taxes on real and personal property by its treasurer due on or before Tuesday, November 12th, 2013 at 5 p.m. Need a motion? Motion's made. How about a second? And I've got a second. Discussion? Questions? It's kind of a routine.
Don't we usually have it the 10th?
That's a Sunday.
Sunday would be, the 10th would be a Sunday.
And did somebody check with?
Yes, we checked with North Bennington.
So it's going to be the same day?
Yep.
Yes.
So North Bennington would be the same day. Okay. Any other questions? Comments? Yes?
Have personal property?
No.
So why is that in there?
It's the way it was drafted.
It's zero. Just tradition.
And it goes, it's carried forever. It's the same verbiage that's been going on for probably 30, 40 years. We did at one point, yes. The town did.
They still have that right if they want to.
No.
No.
No, this article deals only with the date for collection of taxes. That's all. It doesn't authorize the town to do anything other than collect the taxes on that date. Bill?
Just a small point, Tom. I believe we collect tax on the cable system, and I believe that's considered to be a personal property tax, but I wouldn't stake my life on that last statement. I know we collect tax on the cable system.
Like Comcast?
Yes.
When you say the cable system, you mean Comcast, the poles and the wires? Okay, so there is a piece of personal property. All ready to vote? Shall the town authorize collection of taxes on real and personal property by its treasurer due on or before Tuesday, November 12th, 2013 at 5 p.m.? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Article 6, shall the Select Board be authorized to borrow money from time to time as needed in anticipation of taxes? Need a motion? It's been moved. Second? Have a second? Any discussion or questions? Again, another routine article. All those in favor of authorizing the Select Board to borrow money from time to time as needed in anticipation of taxes, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Article 7. Shall the town appropriate the sum of $1,854,628 to defray the town's general and highway expenses for fiscal year 2014, the amount of such sum to be raised by property taxes and to be reduced by non-tax revenues and reserve funds? I need a motion in that effect. Motion's been made. Do I have a second? And seconded. And if you look on pages 46 through 62, that's the budget presented that we're voting on. Questions? Y'all ready to vote? All those in favor of the town appropriating the sum of $1,854,628 to defray the town's general and highway expenses for fiscal year 2014, the amount of such sum to be raised by property taxes and to be reduced by non-tax revenues and reserve funds, as presented, pages 46 through 62 in the town report, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Article 8. Shall the town's fund balance reserve fund be amended so that the town may reserve funds in an amount not greater than 15% of the annual budget to meet unexpected expenditures and revenue shortfalls that might otherwise require short-term borrowing? I need a motion. Motion's been made. Do I have a second? And I have a second.
Could I address the
Discussion.
motion?
Yeah.
A couple of years ago, the town authorized the creation of a reserve fund, and for a couple of years we stuck $5,000 or $10,000 a year into that reserve fund. This year, the treasurer educated us on our true fund balance, which is the cash on hand that's been carried forward from year to year and accumulated. We don't need to accumulate more cash in order to have a fund reserve. So that's why you see in the budget no proposal for adding any new money. The rainy day fund was accumulated for years, and we just didn't do the analysis we should have done to understand what our true cash position was. At least I didn't. Now what we're asking you to do is amend the restriction on the fund balance. The only way a municipality can carry money forward from tax year to tax year is if the voters authorize a reserve fund. If it's not authorized, we are required to have a plan for spending that money in the next proposed budget. Our current language says that the reserve funds are only going to be used for unplanned, emergency, or unexpected necessary expenses. What we're proposing is to make the language a bit more flexible, because we start the fiscal year in July and we get all the way to November with little revenue. Some of it starts coming in September, and then more and more of it in October and November. We could borrow less if we could use some of the reserve fund to meet our cash needs early in the fiscal year. That doesn't mean we're going to spend the money and not replenish it. It just means borrow a little less money, use the $200,000 fund balance as a bit of a float, and as the tax money comes in, then replenish that fund balance. It will save us interest expense going forward and provide us a little bit more flexibility. So that's why we can't do this as a select board, amend this language. This is something that the town has to do. We're asking you to give us permission to have a little bit more flexibility on how we use the fund balance reserve fund.
Thank you, Lon. Questions? Yes.
It's implicit in what you just said that the cost of borrowing is greater than the interest that we get on the reserve fund?
The short answer to that is yes.
Right. Questions or comments? Ready to vote? Shall the town's fund balance reserve fund be amended so that the town may reserve funds in an amount not greater than 15% of the annual budget to meet unexpected expenditures and revenue shortfalls that might otherwise require short-term borrowing? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Article 9. To transact any other non-binding business as legally may come before said meeting at this time. There's nothing, no motion or anything like that, but this is where if you've got any questions or concerns that you would like to present to the body or present to the board, have at it. If not, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion's been made. Is there a second? All in favor of adjourning, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Night. Thank you.